Welcome to week 7, and this week we're going to focus on our e-learning assessment. So by now what you've done is you've done through checkpoint 2 and you've added all the content. Now we want to assess the learning, so we're going to focus this week on the quizzing options within Captivate. These quizzing options are meant as a way for us to assess the learner's capabilities and how much they've met their learning objectives. Now I do want you to have several quiz questions. However, several of your content lend itself to a hotspot quiz or other types of assessments. If you have done that, and that is the way you're going to be doing your feedback, and that's the way you're going to be assessing the learning, that is completely fine. You do not need to add additional multiple choice questions. However, you need to make sure you have at least 3 very clear assessment questions. Now, if you are going to use a hotspot quiz, and that is going to be one of the ways you're assessing the learners, you need to make sure there is actual feedback on there that says correct answer, incorrect answer, as if it was a quiz question. So our objectives this week are twofold. The first objective is that we want to design effective assessment activities for an e-learning project. It's important that these are effective and they are appropriate. So if it is more appropriate for you to have a sequence type question, I want to see that. If you want to do drag and drop, that's totally fine, but the questions in the assessments to be linked back to your learning objectives for your individual projects. I also would like you to begin to add the audio narration to your e-learning project. This is going to be one of the requirements, is that you need to have audio narration for all your slides with the exception of your quiz slides if you're doing traditional quiz slides multiple choice. You do not need to read the quiz question to the learners. However, if you are doing a hotspot or a drag and drop practice activity that you're going to use as an assessment, you need to make sure you are providing audio narration, because otherwise the learner will not understand where it is they're supposed to be clicking and what they're supposed to be doing on that particular slide. So the weekly readings this week, you have one chapter. It's going to be chapter 4 in the Pitch book, and it's going to be how to do it design. This chapter is going to be a very helpful chapter for you because it's going to specifically talk about how you develop e-learning assessments. It's going to talk to you about how you need to assess the learners and specifically what types of e-learning assessments you can do. The benefit of using something like Captivate is you do not have to use a simple true-false multiple choice. You have a lot of other assessment opportunities. You have the drag and drops, you have the sequencing, you have the hotspot. These are things that are powerful within e-learning, and I want you to be able to think outside the box and think of creative ways to assess how your learners are able to go through your content and leverage the capabilities of Captivate. If you haven't already reviewed it yet, you want to make sure you review section 5 in your lynda.com tutorials about assessing e-learning. What this will do is it will specifically show you how to do the e-learning within Captivate. So in your chapter you read about why you want to do it, what types of questions, how to formulate your questions, and in the lynda.com tutorial is going to show you how to actually implement those things. It's going to show you how to use the hotspot as a quiz. It's going to show you how to do drag and drop sequencing. Pay very close attention to those and make sure you're following those instructions and applying that within your individual project. For checkpoint 3, it's going to be due on Sunday the 24th of February. And what you want to do is you want to make those corrections from your checkpoint 2 feedback. Since you just submitted those, I'm going to be reviewing those and giving you feedback over the course of this week, and I would like you to implement and make those changes into your new version, which you will submit as checkpoint 3. If you lost any points in checkpoint number 2, correct those, submit it in checkpoint 3, and I will go back and regrade your checkpoint 2 and give you your feedback, your points back rather. That way you do not need to make multiple submissions, and that way you can be moving forward. It may also be useful for you to wait until you have your feedback from checkpoint 2 and you have finalized your content before you begin doing your audio narration. You're going to need to have at least 3 quiz questions with customized feedback. If you're going to be doing a traditional quiz section and you're not going to be embedding the questions throughout your module, I want to make sure you have customized feedback, and I also would like to see a quiz intro. By quiz intro, what I mean is I would like to see one slide that's before the quiz questions begin that say, now we're going to practice doing this. Here are several questions for you to do a knowledge check. It does not have to be elaborate, but it needs to be a very clear indicator that the learner is getting ready to do and shift from content into actual quiz. For the quiz results slide, Captivate will automatically create that for you. When you're doing the multiple choice, the true, false, the sequencing, those quiz result slides are going to be helpful because they will automatically include the feedback on what their score was, but more importantly, have the link for how to retake and review the quiz. These are several things that many of you mentioned in your individual project proposals that you wanted to add. So doing that with the quiz result slide is the way to do that. You can then customize it to make sure it matches your theme. You can add a picture, you can do different things for that. And I have an example to show you for that. You also need to have at least 3 survey questions. This should be at the end of your module, and this is simply going to be a way for you to collect that feedback. And they do not need to have feedback to the learner because it's a survey question. So this is just almost like a proof of concept, a prototype. These survey questions aren't necessarily going anywhere. You're not actually going to be able to do anything with those survey questions. But it's helpful for you to practice writing these types of questions. How well did the learner believe that the module helped meet the learning objectives? What was something they liked the best, the worst, that type of feedback, similar to the feedback that I gave you earlier. The reason why this is going to be significant is I want you to practice writing these questions because in your team project, you will have to actually do an evaluation with some specific learners, and you will have to collect the feedback and implement those changes. So this is an opportunity for you each to individually get practice writing those kind of questions and for me to give you feedback so you can prepare for when you move on to your next assignment. You should also be working on the audio. This is not a requirement for this checkpoint. I understand that you're going to want to wait until your content and everything is finalized before you start doing your audio narration, but I did want to put this on the radar, particularly for those of you who are moving a bit further ahead and are further along in your development. You want to be thinking about the audio because you're going to need to have audio for all your slides, and that's going to be one of your requirements before you end the final project. So what you want to do is you're going to want to begin the quizzing slide. You're going to want to be adding your multiple choice, your fill in the blank, your different questions. Become very familiar with the customization options within Captivate because it's quite powerful with how it can allow you to add different functionality. You can apply themes to it, you can apply colors, you can do what they will see when they get the answer correct, when they get it incorrect. There's a lot that you can customize, and I encourage you to customize these questions to make it match and fit with what you're trying to do. So one of the things, here's an example. This is not in Captivate, this is actually in Adobe Presenter, but it does demonstrate some examples of what I'm talking about. So as you can see on the left-hand side, we do have our navigation, and we have what's called the Consider This. So what I have done is I've done an intro. So the audio is going through, is presenting Steve, who's got a situation that he needs to do some regulations for, and it presents the question. This question of if Steve divided his farm is the actual question I'm going to ask on the next slide. So what I've done is I've indicated very clearly to the learner, hey, we're getting ready to do a quiz. When you're ready to begin the quiz, click on the Continue button. You'll notice that the next slide is the actual quiz question. You see the quiz questions repeat at the top. It's a yes/no question. But then what's helpful is you see this feedback, and you see how this feedback, even without you having gone through the content, you can look at the question and answer the question and understand exactly what it is that made the question right or wrong. One of the things that you want to see is that you see about how much text. This is about how much text I'm expecting to see for your feedback. It's very clear what the explanation is and how it connects back to the information. That click anywhere to continue, you're going to have the same functionality in Captivate. So this is an example of what I'm looking for in terms of when I say customizing that feedback. So your only assignment this week is checkpoint number 3. So take a look at what the requirements are for that. It's all loaded in the Canvas site. And as we go in our progression right now, we are working on checkpoint number 3. It's also a very good idea for you to go and take a look at the individual project requirements and all the things that you need to have for your project and start checking things off on the list and make sure that you have addressed all those things. So several things that I mentioned, such as recording the audio, making sure you have your quiz and your feedback, these are all things you want to make sure you have. If you don't have any of those things, now's the time to start working on that because the final project is going to be due on March 3rd. So the following week, next week, what we're going to do is we're going to do some peer review. That's going to be the final opportunity for you to make your revisions and also get some feedback from your classmates and hopefully identify some things that you did well or things that you're having a challenge for. Also, please be sure to post things that you found. Debbie's posted a problem that she had and also a solution. Brian has posted some different resources that he's found of tutorials. please continue to share that in the Adobe Captivate tips and tricks forum, because that's going to be a helpful thing as you're looking to customize your projects. Overall, great work so far. I look forward to looking at checkpoint number 2, and please